I was watching and witnessing this. My hand was not on the planchette. I remember that we were all like, dude, why? The planchette moved to the letter U and stopped. Not me, but my mum and dad. My brother is 7 years older than me, and the story goes like this. My parents rented a house that my mum's aunt and uncle owned in the late 70s. The aunt unalived herself in the early 60s in the back bedroom of the top floor. Shortly after my brother was born, they decided to use a Ouija board to try and contact her aunt. After a few questions and inquiries, they asked a question that prompted the board to respond with M-O-V-E-J-A-Y. My brother's name is Jason, goes by Jay. They moved his crib to their room. A short few days later, a massive storm caused a tree branch to crash through my brother's bedroom window. It landed, you guessed it, right where his crib would have been. I'm a 33-year-old female, and I grew up in a haunted house. It was an old Queen Anne farmhouse in Wisconsin that was built in 1865. During World War II, it was a halfway house for soldiers returning home from the war. There were odd things that would happen pretty routinely. Radios would turn up or down on their own, pictures would fall off shelves, and my bedroom door wouldn't stay closed no matter what I did. Often you could hear people talking in the next room over, but then no one would be there. There's a spot on one of the landings on the stairs that go up to the second floor that was always ice cold. It didn't matter if it was the dead of summer or if the heat was turned on. Sometimes the entire house would boom and shake out of nowhere, like someone hit the house with their car. And sometimes there was a banging noise in the ceiling, which would start at one end of the house, and then rapidly, too rapidly to be some kind of critter, it would travel along the ceiling to the other side of the house. It took about 2-3 seconds. There was a freak cherry tree in the backyard that grew as tall as the house, about 3 stories tall. There was also a young woman with blonde hair and a white dress who appeared pretty commonly to guests in the front hallway. That's just a few of the examples. One day, when I was in middle school, a friend from school, Josie, and I decided to play around with her Ouija board. Mind you, the timing for this was not good. Josie's mum had passed away, and her dad was abusing her at home. So she'd been staying with us for a few days while we figured out what to do. So things were tense and emotional, and Josie was in a vulnerable position. On top of that, we didn't know what we were doing. That night, we must have made contact with something angry. Or made something angry. I don't really remember how the seance started or what really led up to things getting out of hand. All I remember is looking at Josie, and she had a switchblade pressed to her own throat, with the edge against her skin. I opened my mouth to say something, yell maybe, but at that moment the bedroom door opened, shoving the chair that was holding it closed out of the way, and then slammed shut, just as the lamp on my nightstand went flying across the room, shattering against the opposite wall. When I asked her what she was doing, all she said was, "I couldn't move." We never spoke about it again, and that's the only time I can remember ever being actually afraid of what was in that house. One Saturday night in 1997, at a cool dad's house of my friend Amanda, a very fun group of my teenage friends, 8 of us, were playing Ouija board in groups of 4, taking turns and watching what we thought was just a silly rite of passage for us to take place. We were having a blast, lightly drinking underage and smoking weed. It was late when the super freaky stuff started to happen. We were all wide awake because the game took weird turns, and I remember seeing 2:22 AM because I looked over at my friend's family VCR and it displayed the time. That's when one of the guys, Ryan the smartass, asked who in the room would be the first to die and how. I was watching and witnessing this. My hand was not on the planchette. I remember that we were all like, "Dude, why?" The planchette moved to the letter U and stopped. Ryan laughed and said, "Okay, how?" The planchette moved to spell out CARCRAS. And that's when my friend Amanda, whose house it was, said, "Okay, we're done now," and proceeded to turn on the lights and blow out the candles near her. Ryan was the only one still sitting there, staring at the board, sort of half laughing but also sort of freaked out. I watched him space out for a moment and thought I was maybe too high, but I wasn't. 'Cause we all sort of stopped smoking around 2 AM, you know, 'cause weird shit. And it was a very strange feeling at the time. We all went outside and laid in the summer grass, and somewhere in that moment, some of us fell asleep outside, or wandered back inside to crash. Smash cut to about 3 months later. Ryan dies in a car wreck near our high school. It happened on a Saturday night. Driving back home with his girlfriend, she survived, after a movie. He didn't see the semi-truck on a curve as he pulled out of a side road to turn onto the main road back into town. Still gives me chills. Other shit happened that night. Candles would not stay lit on a warm, calm summer night inside a house with the AC off and windows open. But we all were freaked out about Ryan, and we still are to this day. Yes, he was a smart-ass, but still, the spaced out look he had right afterwards made me think he wasn't moving the planchette at that time.